Hello, and welcome to Rocket Fuel, your daily update of everything that's happening in Rocket Pool and Ethereum. My name is Wack. Today is August 26th, and today's episode is going to start with the all-time high price for ETH. Of course, where else would we start? After that, we're going to be talking about Rocket Pool with new Rocket Pool Explorer potentially coming soon and a new smart node release. On the Ethereum side, we are going to be talking about the whole world's financial system coming on chain to Ethereum and using ETH. Hopefully, we're going to be talking about using Ethereum for privacy, a Bitcoin whale swapping their BTC for ETH, and some interesting details there. And there's a whole lot more as well. So let's get started.
10, 9, ignition sequence start, 6.
Okay, so the only place to start, where else could we start today, is with the ETH price. So last week, ETH was doing okay, like just about a week and a half ago, and the price had gone up to like 4,800, but really couldn't get much further than that, and then took a little downward trace all the way down to like 4,100, 4,050, and that was when Tom Lee came out and said that, his TA bro said that this is the area to buy. Well, that really was the area to buy, because a couple of days later, the Fed announcement at Jackson Hole basically was that the Fed is going to change some of their policies regarding inflation and the unemployment targets. And because of that, it looked like the cuts that people were scared that might not happen just became much more likely to happen. So everyone was pumped, everyone was excited, and we did really well with that. So the price basically on that reached a new all-time high, but it just barely kissed an all-time high. It went up to 48.87, which according to some exchanges was a new all-time high like Binance, but according to some it was not a new all-time high. And then on Sunday, we actually did get a pump into a new all-time high. But pretty much right after we got the pump into the all-time high, we got this dump that happened. So the price hits the all-time high, and then it just went down really, really fast from there, all the way down to 4,311. And since then, it has bounced back, going up to around 4,550 or thereabouts, which is where we are right now. So the ETH price action has been spectacular, really, really amazing. If you actually have a look at it compared to ETH BTC, let me I get that open here. ETH BTC has been performing very strongly as well, and so much so that we hit a new local high in the ratio, which of course is something that we all love to see. But if you have a look over here on the 4-hour chart, you can see that we went up to 0.04327. After that, we had a little bit of a retrace, but since then, ETH has been performing extremely strongly against BTC, going up to nearly 0.042. Just a little bit less below that right now. But yeah, ETH has been performing very strongly. And what does this mean? This means that if you are an all-time ETH finance user, then Fizz, this was 4 years ago, said that when ETH hits $5,000, you will get a POAP saying that ETH has hit $5,000. And that is back, that's still on the table. So the idea was that any point between ETH hitting $5,000 and 24 hours after that point, if you donated $10 to ETH Staker, you would get a POAP celebrating ETH to 5K. So this was set up 4 years ago. ETH still hasn't hit 5K, but we are as close as we have ever been. And hopefully we'll be hitting 5K very, very soon. But if you want that POAP, then get in touch with Fizz. The address that is linked to ETH Staker here isn't the address that ETH Staker uses now. So you might want to make sure that you are sending it to the correct ETH Staker address, lest you be left without an airdrop, a POAP. But that was really, really exciting news. So yeah, I really like that. And then here, Jasper actually shared this tweet saying that just because ETH hit an all-time high, that also means our ETH hit an all-time high, and our ETH actually is now higher than the inflation-adjusted all-time high for ETH. So Jasper says here, our ETH is an all-time inflation-adjusted all-time high. I retweeted this by saying that our ETH is the only token that is guaranteed to go up against ETH. That, of course, there's some nuance there with discounts, and pegs and all that kind of stuff, but in the general trend is upwards for our ETH, and this was really, really great to see that the token was hitting all-time high prices. It was really, really cool. And yeah, just being in the Discord, just being around friends, talking to them about ETH hitting all-time highs. It's been so much fun. Like, if you are not part of any community, which you probably are if you're watching Rocket Fuel, you're most likely, part of the Rocket Pool community or and somehow in the Ethereum ecosystem, then it's really, really great to, share the positivity with friends. So I implore you either become more active members of the Rocket Pool community again, or just, find a group chat with a few of your friends who you can celebrate these moments with, because that's what crypto is all about. It really is all about, sharing the positive moments with your friends. And, we waited 4 years for this, right? Like, we waited many years for this to happen. So really enjoy those days when they come about, because they're so far between. But hopefully, these next few months are going to have lots and lots of all-time highs for ETH. And I will be here charting all of them and watching for all of them. Okay, let's move on to some Rocket Pool news now. And the Rocket Pool news here is Ramana asking about a Rocket Pool Explorer and whether we will have one for Saturn. And he says, I guess Drizzle is building one, and what's happening with that. So Drizzle then popped into trading, not actually into the GMC thread, just a little while later, saying that, yeah, you can see the current status here at devnet.rocketpool explorer. rocketexplorer.net. And this is a website that is now live. However, the information that you are getting here is based on testnets, because this is still a testing website. Let's actually change the view so you can have a little bit of a better look at what's going on here. So it says Rocket Pool Explorer, DevNet, and here you have, it gives you information about the different tokens, RETH, RPL, and even RPL Legacy. It tells you about nodes, staked RPL, Q, contracts, etc. And there's a quick overview of different pieces of information on the dashboard as well. So there's RETH supply, RPL supply, legacy RPL staked, megapool RPL staked, and so on. So this is actually a really, really cool piece of information that I'm hoping will go live very soon. But we have desperately needed an Explorer since the one by Pateris went down, and yeah, that's been a huge miss for people who want to track different things that are happening. But hopefully this will be on mainnet soon, and you'll get some really good information about what is happening with this and what is not happening with Rocket Pool through the Explorer. So this is something that I'm probably going to be using a lot of on Rocket Fuel once it goes live. But it's really cool that this is getting closer to being ready to go. Okay, and sticking with Rocket Pool, we have a new smart node release, and this is version 1.17.2. Fornax here says releasing this version with a few a few client updates, but also it has some smart node changes and fixes. And what Fornax is talking about here, he says that this is a recommended upgrade for the node operators and ODA members. And what we have here is client updates for Geth, Lodestar, Nethermind, and Nimbus. We also have smart node changes, so improved logic to fallback to the archive URL when the primary clients fail. Added warning about mini pools not staked on the mini pool status command. Modified the recovery command to skip inactive keys. Allow custom messages when proposing one-time spend, recurring spend, and recurring spend update. And fix the hoodie gas estimator URL on testnets. And fix the Nethermind pruning parameter. Fix node watchtower. Added support for Debian 13. Added an on-chain proposal metric collector, and added on-chain metrics for Grafana dashboard 1.3.3, and refactor using blah blah blah, whatever. So if you want to upgrade, the information is there on the Rocket Pool docs about how you can upgrade. And yeah, that's pretty cool that is done. Okay, let's move on to some Ethereum news now, and we are going to be starting here with this amazing headline from the Wall Street Journal. And Nate Grassi here says, what a headline. And then the headline of the Wall Street Journal, the main headline is Peter Thiel leads pack of investors piling into Ether. And then this is the really cool bit in the Wall Street Journal. It says, proponents see Ethereum becoming the platform of choice for the financial world. Now, that idea is absolutely incredible, just even thinking about that, which is really interesting because 4 years ago, ETH was kind of at this price, the 4,000s. And that was, of course, the blowout top, the mania period. But no one in their wildest dreams at that point would have imagined a headline like this. The Wall Street Journal saying that Ethereum could be the the platform of choice for the financial world. It's truly amazing to see just how far we've come and just how pivotal Ethereum is, on the verge of becoming for the world. Now, if you want to read the actual article itself, that is here. There's got some information about different DATs and about how Peter Thiel has bought into 3 different DATs, bought big shares into them. So it looks like that's his mechanism of choice for purchasing ETH, basically indirectly getting exposure through those DATs. But this is just a hugely bullish article. It actually talks about how ETH has outperformed BTC year to date, and ETH went down a big chunk, nearly 60% at one point compared to open, and since then it's just surged past, going up to about 30% up year to date when this article was written, but above ETH, so above BTC. So there's more information here about the different DATs and what they're doing, and about Peter Thiel himself. But the main thing that I liked was just the fact that Wall Street Journal are talking about proponents of ETH, supporters of Ethereum and ETH, saying that Ethereum is going to become the backbone of the financial world. Like this is just amazing to see that. And then Nate's still here talking about the Fed and talking about how the Fed Governor Bowman on banks, regulators, he says there's change is coming for crypto. He says it's essential that banks and regulators are open to engaging in new technologies and departing from an overly cautious mindset. So Nate here again says that the shift is happening fast. So when you see that this is there's this idea that banks are being told in real time that you need to be embracing crypto, and of course the crypto that they are so far mostly engaging with is Ethereum. That's awesome. Here Nate says that he would put this up there with Chair Atkins' recent Project Crypto speech. He says this isn't a random person, this is sitting governor of the Federal Reserve. So yeah, this is really powerful. You can read the screenshots to actually get the full information there. And then again, Nate here says in the FOMC meetings, this is from last week, he says that the Fed, when they were discussing, the July meeting, they mentioned stable coins 14 times during that meeting, talking about the Genius Act, talking about how stable coins could help improve the efficiency of the payment system, and also observed that stable coins could increase the demand for the assets needed to back them, which is treasury securities. So this is, I think, a huge point at which the US government is trying to pay attention to and try to make sure that people are buying treasuries, and they're looking at selling these treasuries to stablecoins providers, and of course most of those are on Ethereum, and it looks like they want even more of those to be on Ethereum as well. So it's just really powerful stuff when you put all of this together. Ryan, and again, even more from governmental agencies here, Nate Garassi again saying that the CFTC is crypto sprinting. He said the administration made it clear that enabling immediate trading of digital assets at the federal level is a top priority. And Nate says, surely you're paying attention, right? So this kind of feeds into this idea that, the crypto market is just getting started. These institutions, they take a while to get on chain, and it can take weeks or months, but these conversations are happening right now. So in 3-6 months you'll start seeing the fruits of this policy shift taking place, where more and more banks, institutions are going to adopt crypto rails. And it looks like, the blockchain of choice so far, it looks like that's Ethereum. And once these systems get entrenched, you just see how hard it is to change them. Like, the current financial system is a hodgepodge of systems that kind of started forming in the 70s. And then all the way through to the 90s, it was just like, bolting on stuff onto that initial framework. And even with, the advent of the digital age, like, going online and going, internet, and the computers becoming a lot more accessible, a lot of these databases that they're using and the systems that they're using are just as ancient. Their roots are still back in the 70s. And that's 50 years, pretty much, of the rails being the same as they are right now. So if we get a situation where they adopt Ethereum and Ethereum becomes entrenched for the world's financial system over the next 3-5 years, at that point what will happen is Ethereum will become entrenched with that. Like, it'll become very, very difficult for the global financial system that has been then built on Ethereum and to then get unbuilt and get built on something else. It would basically mean that Ethereum would become the backbone of this system for a very long time. And that, of course, is amazing, which is why this period is so important right now, right? That, Ethereum is kind of positioning itself as the place where all of this should be happening. And that is happening to some extent, a great extent. But it also doesn't mean that, we should just be like, oh, yeah, it's happened. Ethereum's won. Let's give up and, let's just go home and let's do other things. There's still a lot for us to do in terms of fighting to make sure that Ethereum stays in this dominant position as the smart contract blockchain and the one that the financial system will be built upon. I think that we can all be involved in that and we can all work towards that happening. But in all honesty, this is really, really exciting. And it's not just the US where this is happening, right? Like, Ryan Sean Adams here mentions that this article from Reuters, it says China considering yuan-backed stablecoins to boost global currency usage, sources say. So just like, the US Treasury and the US Fed and like all these different US institutions are realizing that having the dollar is on chain is such a huge tool to get more of the world on the dollar. I think China's like, whoa, we want people to be using the yuan, and what they can do is pretty much the same thing. So Ryan Sean Adams here says deploying the yuan to Ethereum may go against Chinese Communist Party instincts. On the other hand, it makes perfect sense. Yuan stablecoin is an incredibly neutral world ledger the US can't shut down. There's SWIFT, which is the US ledger. There's CIPS, which is Chinese ledger. Then there's Ethereum, which is a world ledger. Now, this is the really crucial thing here. The reason why the whole world will build on Ethereum is because every country, they'll look into it and they'll be like, actually, this is neutral. There is no way that any other country can sanction any address on here except, taking over all the validator set pretty much, like we saw with the OFAC stuff. But even then, there's ways around that. There's ways to keep going. Ethereum still kept going. Tornado Cash transactions still kept getting processed, even during the height of that censorship. But on the global level, this will... people will look at Ethereum and they'll say, yes, this is a place where we can build what we need to build because no one can stop us, no one can censor us. We will have full control. And if they make it permissionless, which I doubt they will, but there'll be versions of it which, could be permissionless later. If you get those permissionless versions, what you'll end up seeing then is that the people will, the retail people will be interested in holding yuan. Like, the only time I've ever held yuan or the Chinese currency in my life was when I was in China a few months ago for one day. I had some Chinese money, but it's not something that I'm interested in holding, right? Like, I hold the dollar, I hold the pound, British pound, but I don't hold, other currencies. Whereas if it's on chain and, you want a mix of a bag of currencies because you want to hedge against the, DXY, the dollar index, then you'd be able to just buy those stable coins. Like, this is actually a really, really big deal. And people in developing countries who don't have a stable currency like the dollar, I guess, they'll then have the choice: do I want to hold digital dollars, US dollars, or do I want to hold digital yuan? Like, what, they'll have a much better experience because they'll be able to make the choice of what they want to hold. Like, I think this is huge, and I think that we're actually very close to seeing big Chinese companies, probably private company, doing the Circle or Tether model of trying to bootstrap liquidity for a Chinese stablecoin. Very, very interesting times. Vivek here as well, showing that even more institutions are ready to buy ETH. He says this cycle will move from private to public blockchains once and for all and unlock the digital era of the world's assets. Stablecoins are the tip of the iceberg. Ethereum is the chain for all tokenization. And then there's a screenshot from an article here saying that DBS launches tokenized secured notes on Ethereum, expanding investor access. So this is Singapore's Project Guardian tokenization pilot, and they're moving forward from permissioned blockchains to Ethereum's public networks as banks test how tokenized assets will scale across global markets. So one thing to pay attention to here is that, what people will want to see is privacy. Like, we will need privacy to be much stronger on Ethereum for people to use this. But I'm actually going to be talking about privacy next, so let's not get ahead of ourselves just yet. And here, Ignis has an article from the Financial Times out of the UK, and he says the EU is considering ditching its CBDC for a stablecoin on public blockchain. And then the article mentions that they're deciding between putting it on Ethereum or Solana. It says a person involved in discussions said that since the so-called Genius Act was passed, EU officials had been rethinking plans for digital euro. So initially they were going to have it on their own blockchain, private, central bank digital currency, and it was going to have all sorts of like controls, limited programmability, complete censorship, no resistance, and all sorts of things like that. But now they're seeing that, to compete on a global scale, just like the Chinese are noticing, it looks like the EU is noticing as well. They will have to build on the public blockchain, and that would be Ethereum. Now, you might be thinking, hey, they mentioned Ethereum and Solana, like, why wouldn't it be Solana? Because the reason why not is because liquidity begets liquidity, and the more liquidity you have, the more assets that you're plugged into, the more likely it is that new assets will plug into that too. Like, this goes back again to the point, when I'm saying that we shouldn't think that Ethereum has won, that this is all done and dusted and, it's all decided. There still are people who are throwing money and incentives at these different groups, trying to get them to build on their chains. I just think that, it looks like at the moment Ethereum is winning out because of the fact that, we've been 10 years with zero downtime, credible trustlessness, neutrality, all of that stuff. It's amazing. And as much as these institutions might not want it for themselves, or for their own users to have those those attributes, because they want to control their money supplies, they also want to be in a position where others can't control their money supplies as well. So it just makes too much sense. Like, the more you think about it, the more it makes sense for all of these global systems to just come onto Ethereum. And because of the fact that it's proven incredibly neutral, and censorship resistant. There's like no one can take away your crypto or put controls on your crypto. So it's absolutely fascinating to see that. I think this is like the big story of the cycle for Ethereum, is that the whole world's financial systems are lining up to come onto Ethereum. And I think too many people are kind of sleeping on this, but it's going to happen before we know it. And it's going to be absolutely amazing to see when it does happen. Okay, so one of the things I just mentioned a few seconds ago was about privacy on Ethereum and how we really need it. And, there's plans of bringing privacy to the L1, and that's through ZK-fying the EVM and making it into a ZKVM. Now, that is a couple of years away. Until then, there's some tools that you can use, things like Aztec and things like Tornado Cash, to kind of hide where you're going. And there was this really interesting piece of like a discussion going back and forth where Anatoly from Solana basically said that privacy on chain doesn't have any product market fit and it's something that people don't really want. And the Ethereum Foundation just did this really great tweet just saying Tornado Cash is a decentralized privacy protocol using zero knowledge proofs that break the on-chain link between sender and receiver, is designed to provide privacy on the public blockchain. Ethereum is for privacy. And I just absolutely loved to see this. It was so great. That the Ethereum Foundation, the Ethereum Twitter account here is really signaling that other people might not care about privacy, but at Ethereum we definitely care about privacy. And I really think that without privacy, there'll be limitations to how much of the world's finances can actually come on chain. But by the time that we are ready for the mass global adoption of Ethereum, hopefully there'll be steps taking place at the Ethereum level to make privacy native at the L1, and that I think would be absolutely amazing. Okay, so how do we get privacy at the L1? We get privacy at the L1 through ZK, and here it just shows you how much emphasis the Ethereum Foundation is placing on pushing this. And Uma Roy, who works with Succinct Labs, she put a tweet out saying the Ethereum Foundation is reportedly offering a $1 million bounty for proving key ZK conjectures. So this is math proof, basically showing that the ZK stuff works the way it's supposed to work. And then Uma adds for context, she says, very few problems in mathematics carry $1 million bounties. Most famously, the Millennium Prize problems, such as P versus NP or the Riemann hypothesis, etc., have $1 million prizes. And he says this is a sign that the Ethereum Foundation is going all in on ZK. Now, this should just tell you how much this is worth, right? Like, the biggest problems in math, the most famous problems in math, if you solve those problems, you will become like a legend. You'll get like the Fields Medal, which is like the Nobel Prize equivalent of for mathematics. You would literally like, your name would be there amongst like Einstein and Newton and these kind of people if you get to the level of, solving these equations. And for solving those, you'll get a prize of $1 million. And here what Uma's saying is that the Ethereum Foundation is giving $1 million for some of these ZK proofs, which is just showing you like how incredible it is that they're putting these bounties out there. I think that these are unlike P versus NP and the Riemann hypothesis. Those are notoriously difficult to solve. But I think these ZK conjectures, I think that these are definitely solvable, and the value that this would bring to Ethereum obviously is more than $1 billion. Like we're talking about a multi-billion, hopefully multi-trillion dollar asset here. That putting $1 million towards making it so much better is absolutely like no big deal at all. So yeah, that I thought that was really, really interesting to see. And then here, like Crash Out says, feels like we're inching closer to the all at once ZK moment. And I think this is what kind of happens, is that you kind of hear about it, and then from people on the outside, it'll almost be like, oh, Ethereum is like switching everything to ZK, and people are like, well, like how are they taking such a risk? But for us who are following the news, we'll know that it's been years in the process, and it's really, really awesome to see. Okay, Fidelity put out a bunch of educational material about Ethereum through their Fidelity Digital Assets arm, and that's really cool, right? Like, good job, Fidelity, like, educating your investors about Ethereum. Awesome stuff. But there's some problems. So here people right away started commenting saying there's a lot of inaccurate information in your BTC and ETH comparison. Not sure you should be sharing a video that's 2 years old. Leo says, why does this have so many inaccuracies? So it looks like, the idea, we can support it. Like, good job trying to educate people about Ethereum. But sadly, this video series is dated. There's a bunch of information that is just not correct anymore. So, good effort, A for effort, but sadly the result is lacking. So hopefully Fidelity can fix that. Okay, one of the stories this week that's been captivating people is this wallet on Hyperliquid that has basically been swapping a whole lot of BTC and buying ETH. It's just like, from the 20th, which is like, nearly a week ago, it started with like, 15,000 BTC swapping into $95 million into ETH. And then there was more, like, it just kept happening basically every few days. And, at that time, they've put the ETH into Aave, but then it just kept happening. Sorry, that was the wrong headline. Oh, that's supposed to be later, actually. Let's move that along. Let me see. Sorry, that got mixed up. Yeah, so here we got an update, so I'll just jump ahead a little bit, but it says that the person's ongoing. They've got another 700 BTC. So you can see all these wallets basically that have the ETH and the BTC that's being swapped into ETH. So he says this brings now total exposure to 138,000 ETH, which is valued at $590 million. So this person's been actively selling, hundreds of millions of dollars of BTC and buying ETH with that. It's absolutely amazing to see just the strength that this is happening. And I think this, of course, is the kind of stuff that contributes to the ratio hitting cycle highs. And with this kind of stuff happening, like, I think it's going to go much higher. What I really want to see is this person, whoever they are, kind of come and become public and kind of share their thesis for why they're swapping tens of thousands of BTC and putting into ETH. I think that would be a really, really great story that I want to hear. And then there's another wallet that turned up as well. And here they're saying that this one has received 86,000 BTC, which is $9.7 billion, which they paid $550 million for. And it looks like they're swapping that into ETH as well. So yeah, there's something going on here. Like the main thing is like, what does he know? But I think these are like, gigantic whales of BTC actively selling their BTC and buying ETH. There's definitely something really interesting happening there, and keeping an eye on it. So yeah, so there's entity 1 and entity 2. Entity 1 has already sold 1,480 BTC, that's $180 million, and bought 38,000 ETH. Entity 2 sold 55,000 BTC, which is $237 million. Sold 3,140 BTC, which is $350 million, and used that to buy ETH spot on the market, but also went leveraged long on ETH as well. So yeah, this is such a great story. So if you're following along, definitely keep an eye on it. And then they sold today they sold another 1,000 BTC, $110 million, and went long additional 432 million, like 5 times long basically, on that ETH as well. So yeah, so the person in total sold 23,142 BTC and built up a combined spot and leveraged position of 461,000 ETH, which is $2.89 billion. So this person's going to make a lot of money. This person is going to make a lot of money with ETH continuing to go up with that leverage as well. It's just astonishing. Definitely something to keep an eye on to see if this trend continues. And what's really interesting is it looks like the place to do these swaps is Hyperliquid, better than any over-the-counter trades, and even better than centralized exchanges. But there is a question that this person probably maybe wants this to be public, and if you want it to be public, then the place to put it is on Hyperliquid. So, wow. Okay, MetaMask are making a USD stablecoin, which it makes total sense because everyone's going to make them now. And it says announcing MetaMask USD, MUSD, and this is going to be MetaMask native stablecoin. So if you want to swap in and out of your currencies, your digital currencies, and if you are using MetaMask, now you'll be getting the option to use MetaMask with that, like their own stablecoin. It makes sense. It just makes sense. Like why wouldn't they want to try to grab as much of this volume as possible? They're going to support on-ramps, off-ramps, swaps, bridging, all that kind of stuff, and they're going to make it native in the wallet, and they're going to have their own stuff. So I think we're gonna start seeing a lot more of these stablecoins launching in the days and weeks to come, months to come. And eventually, I think we'll probably have an explosion, and then we'll have a compression where only a handful of them, the power law distribution, basically, there'll be some winners, and then that'll be the case. I think going forwards is that we'll have 5 or 10 entities or whatever with any meaningful size or volume, and everyone else will just be eaten up by the smaller ones. But right now we're in the phase where everyone just wants their own stablecoin because they see those treasury dollars with those rates on the treasuries and thinking of it as free money. Let's see how it goes. Okay, talking about digital currencies, it looks like Coinbase are making a push for adding more local stablecoins. And here they want Korean, Japanese, Thai, Iraqi, Vietnamese, Indian, Pakistani, Myanmar, I think. I'm not sure, Malaysian, and Egyptian money as stablecoins. So not only is this happening in the US and China or these European Union, but it also looks like it's going to happen very quickly on a smaller international scale as well. And some of these countries have got hundreds of millions of people, or billions of people in the case of India. So it looks like the stablecoins are going to get really big really fast. And hopefully if some of these are being built on with Coinbase, it looks like they might go on Ethereum and on Base as well. So awesome stuff. Okay, however, with all these different stablecoins, there's one stablecoin that I like to use and what the Rocket Pool GMC likes to use, and that is Bold. This is made by Liquidity V2, and this is a decentralized, permissionless, all immutable dollar stablecoin, and you deposit your ETH or your RETH to mint this against that, and I love using Bold. I think Bold is fantastic. It's always redeemable for $1. It has immutable contracts. There's no blacklist and there's no off-chain dependencies. It's all on chain. It's all on Ethereum. If you're looking for a stablecoin to use, then definitely consider Bold. Okay, Ethereum is at an all-time high, not just in price, but also in activity. Of course, with recent gas spikes, gas limit increases, we see that Ethereum L1 transactions and active addresses are now at all-time highs, and gas fees are so low, which is absolutely amazing to see. Like transactions can go through, in 12-second blocks, average time of 6 seconds per transaction. You can get it in really quickly, like, just paying slightly high fee, and the GUI, it's like less than 1 GUI basically most of the time. So you can do most transactions on Ethereum for less than $1. Absolutely amazing to see. Really, really good stuff. Okay, moving on to some flows talk now. And this has actually been really, really fascinating to see over the last few days, where the Ethereum inflows for the ETFs have hit some outflows over the course of last week, but Friday, as we were hitting all-time highs with after Jackson Hole, and then yesterday and Monday, even though the price was fluctuating wildly over the weekend, hitting new all-time highs but also falling quite a lot, we still saw huge new inflows to ETH. So last week was the first net outflow week that we had in a few months, which was a shame to see, but that has pretty much, we've started this week on a very strong foot, and as the prices perform decently well today, with an uptrend, hopefully that we'll keep that going with positive flows. I would have been sure that on Friday we would have had all-time high inflows to the ETFs. However, on Friday it was just 287 million, way less than what I would have thought. But considering the price action for ETH, but hey, it was all good. And then at the same time, if you look at what BTC is doing, it's actually been struggling a lot comparatively. It's had way more outflows than ETH has. Even the inflow days have been smaller than the outflow days have been more than the ETH outflow days, and then the inflow days have been less than the ETH inflow days. So it just shows that BTC is actually weak right now, and that of course explains why the ratio is increasing so much the way it is. And then we have a strategic reserve as well. So here, if you have a look at the strategic reserve, it says that ETH is now flipping BTC for treasury company trading volume. And if you have a look, this is going back all the way to September 2024. Over the last year, the BTC was the only, show in town for a lot of that time. And MicroStrategy, of course, was getting most of that volume. And in the last couple of months, the ETH barely comes up onto the chart. And then it's just been straight up over the month of July and into August. And now the volumes for ETH on the treasury companies is going above BTC. And here, etc. says ETH is flipping BTC metrics left and right and center. It's only a matter of time before the market cap flips as well. So yeah, I'm of course a believer in the flippening, as I've told you guys many times. I've been saying flippening for years now, even during the depths of the bear, and I still think it's going to come. So I'm ready for it. If you have a look at the strategic reserve, though, these numbers are just astonishing. Tom Lee just can't stop buying. He's now at 1.7 million ETH. Sharplink Gaming is at 740,000 ETH. I saw a number today that says that they should be going up to around 800,000 ETH, if not a little bit higher, because they've been buying more. That hasn't been publicly disclosed yet. Ether Machine, 345,000. They've not gone up actually much in the last month. And then a couple of others movers, BTCS are up 25% in the last month, but they haven't really moved as well. But it's just mostly the inflows are coming in for Bitmine and for Sharplink, which is Tom Lubin's company as well there. So amazing stuff. Okay, so in other news, a lot of the movement happened because of the Fed. There was some weakness in the TradFi markets last week because people were worried about ETH. And a lot of those worries were assuaged at this meeting, and that's one of the reasons why the prices pumped so much. People weren't just worried about ETH; they were worried about TradFi, basically, and the job numbers and stuff. And and this was basically the most bullish report that you could have seen. I'll let you read the article to get into it, but basically there were some changes in how they were going to talk about unemployment, and then they were saying that the 2% target is a little bit more flexible. That's still what they're targeting, but they're going to be a little bit more flexible around it. So the 2% inflation target. So that was, hugely bullish, and the markets loved it. All markets pretty much just went straight up on the news, completely vertical. Those 1 hour candles were just like absolutely amazing to see. So yeah, it was a really big deal. And then here we said it's the Fed's Bostic says, still eyeing 1 rate cut this year, but forecast is still in flux. So it looks like the rate cut in September is going to happen, and people are just wondering how it's going to go and what it's going to look like. And yeah, that's one to keep an eye on, definitely. Okay, there was big news out of Solana ecosystem today with VanEck filing for, not today, a couple of days ago, with VanEck filing for an ETF that holds Jito Sol, which is an LST. This is really, really interesting if this goes through, because it'll pave the way for a Rocket Pool ETH ETF at some point down the line. So this is huge news for Jito, Solana, and DeFi in the US. VanEck filed this. It says staked ETFs will offer investors the best product, and we're excited to see VanEck pushing forward here. So the reason why I'm covering this is because obviously there's a bunch of ETH LSTs like Lido's ST ETH and ETHify's. That's liquid restaking token, but still, like, the ETH, of course, we think that is most decentralized, most permissionless, all those great Ethereum values. It is best in class for those things. So hopefully we'll be getting one of these ETFs for ETH soon as well. Okay, a couple of things I want to finish with, just like a couple of thoughts. And this is from DC Investor. He says, remember, if your hatred for past ETH price action, ETH maxis, the Ethereum Foundation, rainbows, unicorns, etc. blinds you to accepting the preeminent position of Ethereum, just remember that people who will soon be bidding ETH in the billions have no idea who you are, no idea who I am, and have no idea about your PTSD, have never heard of your fund and its thesis, and they certainly couldn't care less about your random shitcoin, which is supposed to kill Ethereum. They see ETH as number 2 crypto asset and the number 1 natively programmable asset. They see the TVL, the on-chain metrics, the multiples of the competition. They see all the stable coins. They see very smart and people they do know, like Joe Challam and Tom Lee, talking about Ethereum as the future of finance. If they see Peter Thiel and Druckenmiller in every DAT, you are irrelevant, and so am I. The sooner you understand this, the better off you will be. Print this out and post it and hang it on your wall. I thought this was a really good rallying cry from DC Investor, just talking about the status of the market right now and just how little we matter. Retail people who've been around for a while, we might have our bags of ETH and we front run the institutions by a decade pretty much, if not longer in some cases. People who got into BTC early, but the reality is that they're going to bring billions of dollars now, which we don't have, if not trillions of dollars. And, with these retirement funds and stuff, and there's no way that we can compete with these bros. So they're going to buy ETH and they're going to buy a hell of a lot of ETH. And the sooner you all start to understand that, the better it's going to be for everyone. Because I think that we're playing a new game now. And I think too many people still don't realize that we are now in a new paradigm and this is the future. And don't sell your ticket to the future for cheap, which sadly a lot of people are doing. But anyway, on that note, I'm going to end today's episode. So thank you all for watching, listening, and being part of the Rocket Fuel community. I hope you all have a lovely day ahead, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.